Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tori and Ren YouTube channel. Before we get started with today's project, which you can see here on the table, I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who entered the 1000 subscriber giveaway. It was really great reading and responding to all of your comments. But in today's video, we're going to be making one of these lanyard ID card holders. So you can put an ID card here or a security card in this clear window pocket. And then on the side here, there's this zipper pocket that you can put other stuff in. So if you go on a lunch break, you can put some cash or some cards in here. You can have your security cards or your access card, and then some keys on the D-ring, and you're all set to go. And then on the other side, there's actually another clear window pocket. So if you prefer to wear it where the zipper is more hidden, you can actually wear it just like this instead. Now I'm just going to put this one on the side here. Now, each of these has their own thin lanyard. The only difference is that these three have the D-ring tab on the back, and this one has it on the front. This is optional depending on how you want to wear it. So if you want the zipper on the back and you want to wear it the other way around, you can put the D-ring on this side, or if you would like to wear it like this, you can put the D-ring on the back. I just wanted to show you what it would look like for both, so you know for that option what it would look like when you make it. Another thing I want to add is that these make really great Christmas or holiday gifts for anyone who goes to work or school and needs an ID card or an access card. I know when I went to university, I had a security card that I needed to unlock all of the doors I went to for classes. So this would have been great for me. So I know it's a very useful item that I know a lot of people can use. So if you'd like to make one of these, you can keep watching this video. I have the full instructions and measurements in it. Or you can check out my Etsy shop down below where I have the written instructions. But let's get started. So I'm just going to move these all away. But before I do that, I actually do want to show you what this one would look like on the back when you wear it, since the D-ring is on the other side. So it'll just look like that if you choose to do this option. I'm just going to move them out of the way. Beginning with materials, I'm just going to put an example one over here so that I can tell you what each piece is for. Starting with print A, you're going to need one piece measuring 5 inches by 6 1/4 wide. If you're using directional fabric, you're going to want the direction to run vertically this way, and that's for this piece here that actually wraps around to the back. For the lanyard strap, you're going to need 2 pieces measuring 2 1/4 by 18. So if you're using directional fabric, you're going to want the direction to run this way, which is why we have 2 pieces so that we can join them and the direction will be correct. So this is the lanyard strap here. For the binding, you're going to need 2 pieces measuring 1 1/2 by 5. The thing with the binding, if you're using directional fabric, it is going to be right side up on one side, but because it folds over to the other side here, it will be upside down on the back side, so this side. But I just wanted to give you a heads up on that if you're using directional fabric. For the D-ring tab, we have a piece measuring 1 1/2 by 2 1/4, and the direction should run this way, so up and down. And with this piece, you can either cut it from print A or print B, depending on if you want a contrast on the back. So for this one, I did it out of print B, but on some of the other ones, I did it out of print A. It just depended if I wanted a contrast on the back there. For print B, you're going to need one piece measuring 1 1/2 by 6 1/4. And this is for the binding that gets sewn to the clear vinyl. Now you can use 100% quilting cotton like I am, or you can use linen like I did on this one. Of print B, you'll also need a piece measuring 5 by 2, and that's for this side panel here that wraps around to the other side. Now I'm using 100% quilting cotton again, but you can also use linen. Next, for print C, which is our pocket lining, you're going to need 2 pieces, one measuring 5 by 4 and one measuring 5 by 2 3/4. So that's the pocket in here. For the window pocket, you're going to need a piece of clear vinyl measuring 4 by 6 1/4. Now I've seen clear vinyls with designs on it, so you can also use those, but I'm just using a completely clear one. Something I do want to note with the clear vinyl is here and there while you're sewing, even before you get started, you're going to want to wash this with some soap and water. That's because the clear vinyl tends to get a lot of lint stuck to it. And if you're using a dark fabric like this, you can really see when there's lint trapped in these seams. So you want to lint roll your fabric and also wash this to make sure there's no lint stuck inside of these seams. Next up, you're going to need a continuous number 3 nylon zipper measuring 5 inches. Mine is a metal lookalike zipper by Sally Tomato that's sold by the yard, and you're going to need 1 pull for it. Next, you'll need 1 1/2-inch D-ring for the D-ring tab and a 1/2-inch swivel hook for the lanyard. Finally, for interfacing, you're going to need 2 pieces, one measuring 5 by 6 1/4 and another measuring 5 by 2. I'm using Pellon 809 or Decor Bond. It's a heavy non-woven fusible interfacing, so you can use that or something similar. I'm just going to move this out of the way now. Other supplies you may need are double-sided basting tape for when we do our binding on our clear vinyl and a hand sewing needle for the outer binding. For our first step, we're going to fuse our print A piece measuring 5 by 6 1/4 and our print B piece measuring 5 by 2 with our interfacing of the same size. So we're going to put the wrong side of the fabric with the shiny side or glue side of our interfacing, and we're going to fuse them. Once that's fused, we're going to take our clear vinyl and we're actually going to wash it. So we're going to get some soap and water and we're going to wash all of the lint off just so we start with a nice clean piece. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take our print B piece measuring 1 1/2 by 6 1/4 and we're going to align it with one of the 6 1/4 inch sides of our vinyl. It's hard to see on camera, so I'm trying to rotate it. I'm just going to align that on top with the right side of the fabric facing the vinyl. And then we're just going to sew across that edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once that seam is sewn, we're going to open it up like so, and we're actually going to take it to the iron and press the fabric. When we're doing that, we don't want to apply any heat to the vinyl because this will melt, and we also only want to apply or hold the iron in each spot for a couple seconds, so very quick, because there is some vinyl under here and we don't want any of it to melt. So you're going to be very careful and very quick. You can also lower the heat setting on your iron just to be extra careful. Now next what we're going to do is we're going to flip over to this side and we're actually going to fold this outer raw edge in just like that to meet that seam allowance. So all the way along, and we're just going to press that outer edge. Now that that's pressed, we're going to fold one more time. We're going to bring that folded edge over our seam to case that seam allowance so it's nice and concealed. And what's great about the clear vinyl is you can actually see your seam underneath, so you can actually align it nice and perfectly with that other edge on the other side. Now if you'd like, you can take quilting clips and hold this in place because we are going to take this to the sewing machine and sew it across, or you can get some double-sided basting tape like I'm going to do, and you can apply a strip right here to hold that edge in place while you sew. I'm just going to do that right now. And I'm just applying mine right above the seam. If you choose to use the double-sided basting tape, be sure not to get any of the sticky part anywhere else because it is quite difficult to get off. That's what it looks like with the double-sided basting tape. So that's what it looks like with the double-sided basting tape, and it's ready to sew. So we're just going to sew close to the edge here to secure it in place. With your print A piece measuring 6 1/4 by 5, you're going to find the middle of the top and bottom 6 1/4 inch sides either by measuring or by folding it in half. So if I fold mine in half, the middle is here, and then I would mark it, and the middle is here, and I would mark it. Once you found the middle of those two sides, you're going to draw a line using a ruler to connect them, so straight line using that same pen. Then what we're going to do is we're going to mark 7/8 down from this corner, from the middle, and from this corner. I'm just going to do it off camera because there's no 7/8 marking on this mat, or 8ths marking, so I'm going to use my other mat. I apologize, I meant my ruler. I don't know why I was thinking my mat with the 7/8 marking, so I'm just going to measure 7/8 down here, and then right over here, and over here, so 7/8. Taking the marked print A piece and your vinyl pocket piece, we're going to place it on top, aligning this top edge with our 3 markings. So here, here, and here. What this does is it makes sure it's an equal distance from the top the whole way across. Then what we're going to do is we're going to baste over here and over here to secure it. And then we're going to sew down the middle following that line to divide our card pocket. And we're going to want to make sure to backstitch a ton right here, because as we put things in and out, that's going to have a lot of tension on it. So we want to backstitch a lot right here to make sure it doesn't fall apart. So again, we're going to baste here, here, and then sew down here. Then once that's sewn, we're going to baste the whole entire thing around to make sure it doesn't move or lift anywhere. Once you've sewn down the middle, like so, to divide that card pocket and baste it around to hold the vinyl in place, yours should look something like this. I also just added my handmade tag underneath before I sewed the pocket down. I sewed it 1/2 inch down from here and a little over 1/2 inch from this seam. Just added it on the front pocket. Next, what you're going to do is we're still going to have that line left over that we drew. So if you use an iron away marking pen, what we can do is we can actually apply heat on this side just a little bit, and that marking will disappear. But you may want to use a protective layer of fabric, because I found that with too much heat on the interfacing, it can start to shrivel up. So you want to be careful with how much heat you apply here. So just a little bit and that marking should disappear. Next, taking our zipper, we're going to align the right side of our zipper with the right side of our exterior, and we're going to align it with the left 5-inch side, so right here. What we're going to do is we're going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The right side of our zipper should face the right side of our fabric, but instead of sewing on this side, we're going to sew on the side with the interfacing because it's more stable and nothing will stretch. So we're going to sew on this side. And you'll notice here that I do have some extra vinyl poking out. I'm just going to cut that off before I sew. So I'm just going to sew that across. Now that that side of the zipper is sewn, we're going to take our print C lining piece measuring 5 by 2 3/4, and we're going to align it with the zipper, that same side, with the right side of the fabric facing the exterior and the back of the zipper. And we're going to sew across using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, but we're going to sew on this side in line with the seam we just sewed. Once that lining piece is sewn, we're going to open everything up by bringing these two, the wrong sides, together, just like that. And because this has plastic here, we actually can't press it. So we can press this side, but we can't press this side. But that's okay, because when we press on the plastic, it actually folds really nicely away from the zipper. Okay, so then once that's done, we're going to take our other piece, our print B piece. I don't know if you can hear my dog barking outside, but our other print B piece measuring 5 by 2, and we're going to align it with the other side of the zipper with the right side of the zipper facing the right side of the fabric. So right here, like so. And we're just going to sew across again using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure that these edges are all aligned. Once this side is sewn, we're going to repeat the same process with our other print C lining piece measuring 5 by 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to align this piece with the remaining side of our zipper. So like so. I'm actually going to flip it over so it's easier for you to see. So you want the right side of your fabric to face the other lining piece and the back side of your zipper, and you want these 5-inch edges aligned. And what you're going to do is you're going to flip over to this side and you're going to sew in line with the seam you just sewed. Okay, and I forgot to mention, but if you're using directional fabric, you're going to want to pay attention to where the top of your pockets are, and you're going to want the top of your print to be here and the bottom of your print to be down here when you're sewing the lining pieces. Now that it's sewn, it'll look something like that. And what you're going to do now is similar to before. You're going to open it up by bringing the wrong side of the print C and print B together, just like so. Oh, there's some fluff on here. And if your zipper is a little bit longer than your fabric here, maybe something moved, you can just trim off the extra bit of zipper so that this edge is nice and straight. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the iron and we're going to press these fabrics away from the zipper. Again, only press this one for the side with the plastic or the nylon because you don't want that to melt, so only press here. But on this side, you're free to press both of them away from the zipper. Once they're pressed, you're just going to sew a top stitch on both sides, here and here. Once the top stitch is done on both sides of the zipper, it should look something like that on both sides. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring the remaining 5-inch side of the print B piece and the 5-inch side of the print A piece together with right sides facing, and we're going to sew across using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once that's sewn, it'll form a tube for the exterior. Then what we're going to do is we're going to separate the zipper just like so, and then we're going to bend the seam allowance. We can't press it because this is the plastic or the vinyl. We're going to bend the seam allowance to this side, so toward the print A side. We're going to finger press it, and then we're going to sew a top stitch on this edge here, so on the print A side, to match this side. So then our pockets will be exactly the same size. Once that final top stitch is done, it'll look like this on both sides. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring our 5-inch sides of our print C lining pieces together to form a tube again. So we're going to bring them together like so, and we're going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once your lining is joined together, it'll form a tube with your exterior. The next step is we're going to be turning this inside out from the open ends. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you something about ironing. So once we turn it inside out, we're actually not going to be able to iron any of this print A fabric inside these pockets because our iron won't be able to get in here, and we also don't want to melt the pockets. I've tried using these mini irons, and every time I've done it, I've been very unsuccessful. I've burnt 2 of them. So I find that even these don't work because this area here is still too large and it can't reach the end of the pocket, only just before the rim here. So if you need to iron your fabric now, I would suggest ironing it on here before you turn it inside out. The only thing is I found that when too much heat is applied to this, it can shrivel up and burn. So you want to be very careful with your interfacing. You want to put maybe a protective layer and use a low heat setting and gradually apply heat to get rid of those wrinkles while making sure it's not getting too much. So I just wanted to let you know that it's the last time you're going to be able to iron it. So if you need to, do so now. I'm going to do that now. So I just applied a little bit of heat to mine. Now I'm going to turn it inside out, and because I can't iron it after, I'm going to be very careful turning this inside out so I don't cause many wrinkles in here. So I'm going to try my best to do it very gently. Pull this up maybe, just like that. So just like so. As you can see here, there's not many wrinkles that were caused by doing that. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to bring our zipper together and we're going to insert our zipper pull. I'm going to go grab mine now. So now that I have my zipper pull, we're going to bring our zipper teeth together like so, and we're going to insert our zipper pull from the bottom. So if we pay attention to where our pocket is, we want this inserted from the bottom so that the pocket closes upward. Sorry, the zipper closes upward. The reason we want it to close upward is we don't want it to close downward, and we put some stuff in here and it causes the zipper to open because it puts pressure on it, and then our stuff will fall out. We want to make sure that there's no chance of anything we put in there falling out, so we want it to close up. So I'm just going to insert my pull here and pull it all the way through, and then we're going to reinsert it and leave it in the middle. So once the tape is even here, you're just going to pull it all the way through and out. Then we're going to open it a little bit here again and reinsert it. Now that it's even again, I'm just going to pull my pull to the middle. So you can see here it's even on this side. And then what I'm going to do is once it's in the middle, I'm going to check that the zipper pull is inserted correctly, that there's not more tape to one side here than the other. And I believe it is inserted correctly. If it wasn't, there would be more tape on this side than this side, and it would look slightly crooked. So if it isn't, if yours is crooked, sorry, all you have to do is pull the pull back out and retry again until this is even here. Okay, now that that's done, we're just going to align in here properly. So I just adjusted everything. As you can see here, mine looks like this. When I place it flat, everything is nice and flat in here, including my seam over here. And the same thing on this side, everything is nice and flat. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to make sure that this here measures about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to mark it on my mat, half an inch, and then the same thing on the bottom here, half an inch, and then we're going to baste across here and here. This will ensure that one of these sides isn't bigger than the other and nothing is crooked, because if this ends up crooked, that actually impacts our card pocket division. It offsets it. So we want everything to be nice and even so that our card pockets are the same size and the seam ends up in the right spot. So I'm just going to baste here and here, making sure that they're about half inch. If yours isn't half inch, just base it on how this seam, so if your seam aligns here, you can adjust this side accordingly. Just make sure that these two sides match each other. Taking your D-ring tab, measuring 2 1/4 by 1 1/2, which is either cut from print A or print B, it's up to you. We're going to flip to the wrong side of the fabric, and we're going to fold it in half with wrong sides facing by bringing those 1 1/2 inch edges together, like so. We're then going to press to crease the center fold. Then we're going to open it back up, and we're going to bring the 1 1/2 inch edges into that center fold, so 1 and 2. We're then going to press these outer folds. We're then going to fold one more time so that those raw edges are folded inside, just like so, and we're going to press one more time. Then what we're going to do is we're going to sew on both sides close to the edge to secure the folds, starting with this open side, followed by the fold side. Once your D-ring tab is done, we're going to insert our D-ring and fold the tab in half, just like so, and we're going to set it aside. Next, taking our 2 print A lanyard pieces, measuring 18 by 2 1/4, we're going to put them with right sides together, and we're going to sew across this 2 1/4 inch edge. If you're using directional fabric, you're going to want the direction to be running vertically and the top of your design to be here and here. That way, when this is around our neck, the direction runs vertically. I'm using a multi-fabric, so mine doesn't really matter. But when you sew across here, you're going to be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and an option is, once you've sewn it across, to sew it again on top of the same seam to make it extra strong. So I've kind of jumped a little bit ahead here so that this next step is easier to show you. But once that seam is sewn to join the 2 strips together, we're going to press the seam to one side. Then we're going to do a folding process similar to the D-ring tab. We're going to flip to the wrong side of our really long strip, and we're going to fold it in half by bringing the longer edges together and with the wrong sides facing. We're going to press to crease that center fold the entire way down, so the whole strip. Then we're going to open it back up, and just like before, we're going to bring the outer longer edges into that creased middle, just like so, and we're again going to press those outer folds the entire way. Then we're going to fold one more time so that those raw edges are folded inside, once again pressing and folding for the entire strip. So your strip will now measure about half inch in width, perfect for our swivel hook. Once your piece is all folded and pressed, you're going to insert your swivel hook, just like so. We're going to move it to the middle, somewhere around there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open up the ends of our fabric, and we're going to join these ends together with the right sides facing, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew across with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you have the option of sewing again on top to make sure it's nice and secure. That way we have the full loop for our lanyard with our swivel hook inserted. Once the seam is sewn to join the lanyard into a loop, we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to press this to one side, and then we're going to refold using our creases. I'm going to refold everything back together. Mine seems to need a little bit more pressing, so I'm going to go do that right now. Now that everything is folded together, we're going to sew a top stitch on both sides here and here, close to the edge, all the way around the entire lanyard. And when you get to the swivel hook, you're just going to gradually move it away from you. That way you can sew all the way around without it interfering. Something I want to note is when you start your seam, let me just find one of my joining seams. You're going to want to start just past one of those joining seams. That's because the swivel hook later on is going to be sewn to the other one, and then this one will sit directly behind our neck. And if you start and stop your seam here, the back stitching won't be visible since it'll be behind our neck. Now, if you're using directional fabric, this will be the joining seam where the top of our print is. The bottom of our print will be down here, that way it runs vertically. So I'm just going to go sew my top stitch now. Once you've sewn all the way around, you're going to bring your swivel hook to one of the joining seams. You're going to bring it to the seam that we didn't start sewing at. So as you can see, I started sewing my top stitch on this side, so I'm bringing my swivel hook to the other one. And again, if you're using directional fabric, this will be the bottom of your print since the top will be at the other joining seam. Now that it's here, we're going to bring our joining seam right in the middle of our swivel hook, so right inside there. And then we're going to sew really close to the swivel hook here, back and forth, so that it's nice and secure. Now that that's sewn, it'll look something like that with our swivel hook nice and secure over here, and it won't move around anymore. So we're just going to set this aside. Taking your card pocket piece, as well as your D-ring and D-ring tab, we're now going to decide where we want to put it. So as I mentioned in the beginning, you have an option. You can either put it on the front or you can put it on the back, depending on how you want it to look or how you want to wear it. I'm going to be putting mine on the back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an erasable marking pen, and I'm actually going to find the middle of this top 3 3/4 inch side. So mine is about here, I would say. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the middle of my D-ring tab. So right about here. And then I'm going to align it with that center marking right over here. And I'm going to sew across here to secure it. And I'm going to sew back and forth quite a few times to make sure it's nice and secure. Once the D-ring is attached, it'll look something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 print A binding pieces measuring 1.5 by 5. And we're going to align them with right sides facing on each 3 3/4 inch side. So here and here on the front of our card pocket piece. And if you're using directional fabric, you're going to want the bottom of your print being sewn in here. That way when it folds up, the direction is correct. And here you're going to want the top of your print being sewn in, because then when it folds down, it'll be upright. Like I said earlier, there's nothing we can do about the other side. When it folds, it will be upside down, but at least on the front, it'll be upright. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our card pocket piece when sewing our binding is centered. And it doesn't have to be perfectly centered, just roughly. So we have an equal amount of fabric here and here. We're going to sew across here using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we're going to repeat on this side. So I'm just at my sewing machine. I'm about to sew my binding to my card pocket piece, but I just wanted to give you a quick reminder to make sure you backstitch a lot on top of that D-ring tab, since that's where this whole thing is going to be hanging from. Once your binding is sewn on both sides, we're now going to fold it up. I already folded this side so you can see what it's going to look like. What you're going to do is you're going to bring your binding up like this and flip to the other side. Then what you're going to do is you're going to press right here. This should be about the size of your seam allowance. You're just going to press that down. Then you're going to press these outer edges in. So here and here over top to conceal that outer edge. Then once those are pressed, you're going to press one more time and bring this outer edge in, and then fold once more so that the folded edge meets your seam just like this. I'm just going to get some quilting clips to hold mine in place. So I have my quilting clips here. So starting with this corner again, we're just going to fold that in, fold that down, and then fold this over. Use a quilting clip to hold it in place. We're then going to do this corner, so fold this in, fold this down, and then fold this over just like that to conceal everything. Just put a quilting clip. And now because we have those creases that we made with our iron, it's actually really easy to bring that fold to our seam and just either cover it or put it right on top so we don't see it. Now for this specific project, I really like the look of hand-sewn binding because then the front and the back match each other really nicely. But what you can also do is you can machine sew it. It's really up to you. So you can sew across here by machine if it's easier. I'm just going to turn a show on and hand sew this, and I'll show you a little clip of me hand sewing it so I can show you how I do it. So I'm sitting down now and I'm ready to hand sew. So I have my needle threaded and I have a knot here at the bottom. It's kind of a messy knot, so I'm just going to trim some of these extra strings off the bottom here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start under here, and I'm just going to leave my knot inside of here. So I'm going to put it inside here, and then I'm going to push my needle right to the corner of where my binding is, so right in here. That way my knot is nice and hidden inside there. Then I'm going to, I don't want it to get stuck on the quilting clips. I'm going to sew one stitch right through to bring that corner right to meet right here. I'm going to pull it right through, just like so you can see that corner meets it. And then I'm going to do another stitch just to bring my thread back up to the top. So just like that. So that corner is nice and secure now. Then what I'm going to do, I believe it's called a blanket stitch. I'm not familiar with the names of hand sewing stitches. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert my needle into the edge of my binding and just take a little bit, just like that. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go to the bottom and do the same thing. So I'm just going to take a little piece, not going all the way through, just the surface fabric. Pull it all the way through. And I'm going to keep doing that back and forth. So bottom, top, all the way till I get to the end. And at the end, we're going to secure it. And you don't have to rush. You can turn on a TV show and do this at the same time. It's kind of enjoyable to do that. Take a little bit from there, and with the area of my D-ring tab, I'm going to try to do a couple extra stitches, so go a little bit smaller so that it's nice and secure here. My fear every time I hand sew is that I'm going to get a knot right at the end, and then I can't keep sewing, and I can't fix it either, and I just did all that work, and I can't finish it. But I've gotten a little bit better doing all of these bags, I will say. So I've just reached the end here. What I'm going to do is my thread is just coming from the point of my binding. I'm just going to do like what I did in the beginning, and I'm going to push it down through so it's aligned here, just like this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of a knot. So I'm going to go across here, just like this. And then I'm going to put my needle through the loop of thread and tie that knot to close it. Then I'm going to push my needle up this way, and that's going to pull the knot up, just like that. Then what I like to do is I like to push my thread somewhere else, or my needle somewhere else in here. So I'm going to do about right here. And I like to do one more knot over here. Oop. I can't see properly because I'm far away from it. Do another knot over here. So back through that loop, I have just enough thread. And then I'm going to push the thread back this way. So that knot is again pulled up. And then I'm going to cut the thread. And you can't see it anywhere. So once your binding is complete, it'll look something like that on both sides. And you can now clip on your lanyard because it's ready to be used. So that's what mine looks like. You can also now pull your zipper pull up and then open. So now your pocket opens and closes. I have mine there. So I really hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. If you're looking for other projects, you can check out the other videos here on my YouTube channel as well as my Etsy shop, and I'll see you all next time.